Does the thought of sales churn your stomach and maybe throw up a little in your mouth? Friends, if you are in business, which I trust you are because you're listening to a business podcast for Christian women, you are selling. But how can we look at sales from a completely different perspective and know that we don't have to chase prospects, but rather serve them? I spent a bulk of my career in the corporate world in sales. You may have heard me share this previously, but before Christ, I was very much a driver, striver, and achievement chaser. And in my sales career, my nickname was Pitbull because I would grab on and stay on until you either said yes or no. In that, I did learn, as we talked about recently in the episode on rejection, that many people are afraid of the word no, not just hearing the word no, but saying the word no. When I went through a sales training later in my career, I learned the value of what's called consultative sales, which focused on coming to a sales conversation to seek a win outcome, even if the answer was no. And I do believe, looking back on that now, as that completely shifted my view of sales, it also was perhaps the first seed that the Lord planted on how I might be doing business differently than the world. And now I have so many friends that I trust who are Christian sales coaches. And so I'm going to share their information down in the show notes. But I want to talk to you today about this truth that you don't have to pursue and chase after and try to find your next sale. It's not about that. It's really not about that. You can stop chasing clients and trust God with your sales. But what does that look like? So we're going to unpack some scripture in this. First, I want to start by saying this. If you have been given your business from the Lord, He has leveraged the gifts and talents that He already knew that He gave you and planned to use for your mission in the marketplace, then you don't have to walk around trying to convince people. That's not our job. I think of it related to the Great Commission. Go and make disciples. We're not the ones that save them. We're not the ones that chase them down and wrangle them and persuade them with fast talk to come to a life of saving grace in Jesus. Our job is to be His ambassador, be salt and light, and share the gospel. That's it. Our job is not to make them say yes or no. And I would argue that's exactly what we are to do as Christian women in business when it comes to sales. Now, I know, the world is always saying things like always be closing. You've heard me say, hustle till your haters ask if you're hiring. Go make it happen. I know the world says that you need to be closing. And I get that. But when we are doing business with the Lord as our CEO, we come to business from a place of service and a place of grace and a place of consultative selling. We want to be able to provide the best solution based on understanding their needs, but we are not holding fast to that yes or no. Because if we trust that the Lord has laid the plan before us, has already aligned and lined up the people that are supposed to work with us, then we don't have to chase down anyone. We don't have to pursue a prospect. So let's start with the definition of pursuit. I did a quick Google search on this, and here's what came up. To seek or strive for. Now, first of all, this flies in the face of Psalm 46:10, which says, be still and know that I am God. That be still means cease striving. When we talk about redefining hustle here on the podcast, we're talking about ceasing striving and being with Him. So we don't have to strive to find those prospects. Does the Lord want us to have a plan in place? Yes. And we lay that before the cross and we allow Him to lead us. Does He want us to identify those that could potentially be a good fit for what we provide? Sure. But it's Him who gives us those names. You know that feeling. Suddenly the name pops into your head and you're like, oh, okay, Lord, should I call that person? But we don't have to strive for it. The second definition was to follow or chase. Now, this is interesting because it says you might pursue a person, an animal, or a vehicle with the intention to catch or overtake them, like police pursuing a suspect. Friends, we are not chasing down prospects this way. That is not what he has given us to do. Absolutely not. So then what does it look like to actually do the Lord's work and sell? Because we do need to have these conversations that lead to a yes or a no. These are vital conversations. If you're sitting in your office not having conversations in person or online or whatever, if you're not sharing your services with people and having discussions with people that you can serve, I wonder if you have a fear of selling. And I'm here to tell you that we sell in everyday life. I think we have to take the bad, just like hustle. I think that we need to ignore the world's commandeering of sales and that it's such a negative, icky thing, and look at it from a place of service and walking out the mission that the Lord has given us. Throughout scripture, I could name all kinds of scriptures. One that's coming up for me right now is Zechariah 4:6. We are told, not by power or might, but by my spirit. We see Jesus giving these instructions. We talked last week about abiding in him. Listen, you may have been very successful in your own strength and power, but the Lord is asking you to allow him to lead you now. And some of the women that I coach have very large businesses and very great success. But one of the things that they come to me for is, why is there incongruence between my outward success and my inner peace? And maybe sometimes it's because they're trying to pursue and chase down the sale. And I help them understand how to shift that thinking to let Jesus navigate. And I promise you, the whole process, the whole sales conversations go so much better. So it is not in our power or might. It is in aligning and abiding with the Lord. In 2 Corinthians 5:20, we're told, therefore we are ambassadors of Christ, since God is making his appeal through us, and we plead on Christ's behalf. Okay, friends, that means we don't look like the rest of the world. That means that we are our natural inclination, for those of us who were or are in full-time sales and we were chasing after the people, we don't do that anymore. We operate in a way that he shows us, right? We can no longer lean on our own understanding, like it says in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. We have to allow him to direct us in all that we're doing in the conversations that we're having. And let us not forget the discipline of seeking. We know Matthew 6:33 says to seek him first. And if we relate this in business, we seek him first for the clients, for the contracts, for the commissions, etc., in his way and in his timing. When we talked about rejection recently, we talked about it from the standpoint of how we take rejection and how we can leave a client feeling so good even when they tell us no. And here, when we are seeking him first for his direction, his timing, and his way, it means that we're treating that person with the utmost respect and love and grace. And guess what? Very often, they come back to you. I have had conversations 2 years ago with someone who now just came back to me and is ready to coach with me. And she said, because the timing wasn't right, but you didn't make me feel ashamed of that. You left the door open for the Lord to move, and now the Lord has moved, and I'm ready. But that couldn't have happened if I had been a snarky salesperson. Okay, we need to reframe our roles in sales to shift from selling to serving. I like this. We invite, we don't insist. We plant seeds, we don't pressure for the harvest. Our clients are never ours to win. They are ours to serve. They are entrusted by God to be served by us when the time is right. So let me end this with some practical ways to look at this. Number one, let's reframe like we just talked about. Yes, we are selling, but truly it's serving. And if you're afraid to get out there and have the conversation, then you're being disobedient to what the Lord has given you, and somebody is missing out on the blessing of working with you. So let's not let fear get in the way of that. But we are to serve versus bowl them over in sales. We are to invite and not insist. We are to plant seeds, not pressure for an harvest. Okay. Number two, before all of that, after we have that mindset, then we are laying at the Lord's feet. Lord, let me serve this person with your heart and your words. And I will listen intently and I will give the reins to you to direct this wherever it goes. If you've been in this conversation with me about working with me, I say in every conversation, this is between you and the Lord. I will most certainly be praying that he gives you the clarity, whether it's a yes or a no. And yeah, I will be praying that he says yes to you working with me. But know this, I am not afraid of the word no. And if it is not his timing, then you need to be obedient to that. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen the person's shoulders drop and the relief in their face because they're not feeling pressured. Okay? Next, we need to release the outcome. We are responsible for obedience, not results. We are planting seeds. It's not up to us to save them. It's not up to us to make them say yes. I don't care what the world tells you. Maybe I'll get hate mail. I don't know. But it's not our job to persuade and insist. Are we to answer objections? Absolutely. But in the end, this is the Lord and his response and his timing, not ours. We also want to encourage those that we're speaking to in this sales conversation that the Lord has already gone before them. He is their advance and their rear guard. So his yes is yes and his no is no. And they also don't have to rack their brain around it. We encourage them to take it back to him, just like we take our sales conversations to him first. I would encourage you, if you're struggling with this, to journal on where you're pursuing prospective clients in your own strength versus trusting the Lord to provide. Now, remember, as we trust him to provide, we are still in motion. We are taking action, the action that he's told us to take. So we don't stop moving necessarily, but it is his job. And I always say, quoting my friend Wynn, where God guides, he provides. And where he gives permission, he gives provision. Friends, I pray that this conversation on sales lets you take a deep breath and embrace the fact that, yes, you do sell, and to not be afraid of that, but to do it from a place of Holy Spirit-led interaction. And as I said, I'm going to put down in the show notes a couple of friends of mine that do teach sales from a biblical perspective. And I'm really careful about this, y'all, because I am not here for prosperity gospel. So I'm not giving you the names of people who are going to be like, yeah, let's get you that 10K month. If that's not God's plan for you, that's not his plan. And that shouldn't be pursued or strived after or chased after, right? But these are people who do teach sales techniques from a biblical perspective. So I pray that will bless you. Remember this, friends. God made you ambitious, but he did not make you to work the world's way. And guess what? He didn't make you for business as usual. And business as usual is always be closing, right? But he didn't make you for that. And you can entrust every aspect of your business, your sales, your finances, your operations to him, because ultimately it's his business, not yours. And until we're together next time, I pray for and encourage that you will tune out the world, that you will tune into his truth, and that you will turn up focus on Jesus so that you can walk out this mission in the marketplace with clarity, serenity, and fulfillment. I'll see you on the next episode.